You can stop by the organization at github.com/orgs/openlearningquest or just github.com/openlearningquest. A little bit easier. Right now, this initiative is pretty new. We have a few ideas. We would like to develop some educational games using the Godot game engine, or perhaps P5JS, or some kind of a medium that allows us to create interactive, story-driven explorations of educational concepts. Godot is a natural fit for that, in that it's a very well-designed game engine and has a fairly easy learning curve. So we'll probably start off with that. Nonetheless, we need some places to work. We're working on GitHub, and I think there's about 3 levels of work we're going to try to do. One is the experimental level, where we have just a fleeting idea of a game mechanic or natural phenomena, and we want to explore that idea a little bit in a game engine or in some interactive media. So this would be what we would call an experiment. Typically, again, these will be done in Godot engine. At this point, I think we're leaning fairly heavily towards Godot. Originally, we were thinking maybe it would be P5JS because it's JavaScript and it's fairly ubiquitous, something like that. It's everywhere. So myself and Harry Cadenfeld, sorry, Harry. We're starting off this initiative called Open Learning Quest. There's 2 other levels we'll be working at. Once we've got an idea of some game mechanics or some basic experiments conducted, we might try to make a small game out of it, like a submarine game where you experiment with concepts of buoyancy, but have some kind of game mechanic like reward or mission to accomplish. That would be what we would kind of call a mini game. It's something short that can be accomplished usually within a few minutes of gameplay, and might be fun enough to try again and again, like Flappy Birds, I guess. Would be an example of a mini game. Hopefully we'll be a bit more engaging and educational than Flappy Birds. So we will create a repository for mini games. Then the 3rd level we're looking at, and what kind of prompted this whole project, is we'd like to create a game, like a full-fledged game or an indie game, not a AAA game by any means. Again, using the Godot game engine, and most likely 2-dimensional graphics, 2D graphics, basic audio. But the game would be more longitudinal. It would be story-driven, and you'd have perhaps characters that you develop over time, and missions or portals or levels to explore. We don't know yet, so we're just in the basic idea phase of all of this. Nonetheless, we need places to work. So in this session, I'm just going to do some sort of project management, basic setup of collaboration space. We're going to be collaborating on GitHub. We're going to be using GitHub projects to manage our tasks and issues, as well as discussions relating to these. Now, Harry and I are working together. We both live in the same city and both have kids around the same age. So we kind of have our visions aligned on this, even down to an agreement about how we can share our work with others as open source and copyleft, open educational resources. That said, we're welcoming of other contributors, people who'd like to share your ideas or your abilities. If you're a coder or a designer or interested in learning game development or game design, you're welcome to also help us out. Particularly if you're you have an inclination towards educational games. So let's go ahead and show the process of creating GitHub repositories where we can collaborate. I'm going to create a new repository. We're going to call this mini games to distinguish it from the experiments, which are smaller in scope and don't have any general aim. They're just to try something out and see how it would work in a game environment. We'll make this a public repository. We're going to the best of my knowledge, all of our work is going to be public and open source licensed with copyleft, Creative Commons assets. We're going to add a README. I don't know what we will ignore yet. I don't think it's got a GD script ignore, so let's leave that alone. And the license is a bit tricky, but Harry and I have both agreed that we want to have strong copyleft, but allow for any use of our ideas in source code. So you can use it commercially, or you can use it in an educational environment. You can build on it and modify it, but we want to have some strong protection, some kind of either reciprocity or pay it forward. So like contribute back to the project, give us credit for where you got the source and state what you changed, but also your derivative work should be in the same spirit. So these reciprocal licenses like the GNU GPL or AGPL or the European Union Public License, those are the ones that have these reciprocity built into the license. I think in our case, we're going to use the GPL. I have to pause for one moment to think. In our mini games, there is some possibility of the game to have a server mechanic, in which case the game wouldn't entirely run on the server. There would be some client code involved. Which you would have to distribute via download, even if you embed it in your browser. But I'm going to take a cue from gcompris here. gcompris is an educational software suite written in C++ and Python. It consists of a bunch of mini games, and we're going to take some heavy inspiration from this project I'm anticipating. And possibly code and media. We might in some ways incorporate some of these mini games and game mechanics. It's created by Timothy Giet, who is the main artist and developer. It was originally released as free and open source software under the GNU GPL 2, then 3. But around 1.1, they switched to AGPL. And I think that was because this software, the way they're distributing gcompris, has some components that can run on a computer server. It's closely relating to web technologies like JavaScript, but it's written in C++ and Qt Quick. So for the time being, I'm going to adopt this GNU AGPL. Harry and I have a working agreement to use copyleft license. I'm pretty sure this is an understandable deviation from our previous license choice, which was the GPL version 3. And I'll explain it. And if Harry has any strong reasoning or whatever to not use the GPL, then AGPL, then we'll switch to the GPL as we've previously agreed. So I'm not trying to be too unilateral here. I'm just anticipating that these mini games might run in a web environment and have some code that runs on the server and some in the client. So just create this and I'll discuss with Harry what the difference is there in my lay understanding, my basic understanding. Cool. So we've got this project for mini games. We will enable discussions on this, disable the wiki because it's hard to license the wiki. Enable sponsorship. We don't need projects. We'll preserve it and we'll enable discussions. Allow merge commits. We don't want rebasing, I've learned. Automatically delete head branches. This can be helpful. We may need to enable large file support at some point, which would include potentially media files and releases. I'll come to that one when we, if and when that's needed though. I think for now, this is fairly good configuration. So there's our mini games repository. Let's go ahead and describe what a mini game is, just for context. That's fairly good for now. Just commit it to the main branch. Very cool. So now, if we've got an idea for a mini game, we'll start by opening a discussion here. Got it. And labeling it as an idea, or saying, hey, what mini game should we work on next? Or these general discussion categories. So all ideas are welcome if you've got an idea for a mini game. We'll probably take a look at some of the G Compris mini games and see what we might be able to build in Godot. This is a good way for us to learn the Godot game engine without having to commit to like a really large development initiative. Now, one more repository is going to be related to our game, which doesn't even have a working title. again, public, add a README, and I should have put that description on the previous one. We'll use the same license here because there could be a server component to this. There we go. I don't know. One character different. And the same settings. So we're not going to use the wiki because I can't apply a license to the wiki-based content. You can use issues if people want to financially sponsor the source code. We're not going to run the project at this level. We'll preserve it. Everything is open source. We will not allow necessarily squashing, but certainly not rebasing. Automatically clean up after we've merged something. And as a helper, you might need to merge changes from the main branch. That's it. So let's take a look here. Aha, one thing that's nice to do is add a few tags here. Simulation, learning, learning by doing, game, what else are we? We don't need packages, environments. What are some other keywords? Science. That's a good one. Story. Physics. Well, there's all sorts of things. We should add those later, like math, astronomy, or other branches of science and physics. But we should add those labels if or when we add game mechanics. Very cool. So that's essentially it. I do have some more time. Oops. We should include art here for sure. Discussions. Now we have a software license. network uses distribution. That's the key differentiating factor. Okay, we will also need an asset license. This is always a bit tricky. How do you apply this? Yeah, so basically, the plain text version is fine. So we agreed with this share alike. We did just review this and that you can use it commercially. Not sure really what the best practice would be. Trying to figure out what is a proper way to how to apply. Kind of nice to have the image there too. Let's see here. Looks good. I think that's good. Now, this emulator version one is maybe questionable if it's legal to apply that or allow that freedom, but I think from the creator perspective, it should be permissible. It's something I can grant. Although the question of whether or not people can agree to license terms that have not been published, even that are hypothetical or unpublished or unknown, is questionable. But we're just kind of saying that anytime they need to evolve the Creative Commons attribution share alike international license, our terms will be updated to reflect that the latest edition of that. We want to honor the spirit of this license and stay up to date with the words as well. I think this is pretty good. What I'll do is I'll create a branch. We'll ask for a review on this one. And essentially I'll do the same thing, more or less, except I will include the Creative Commons license text in the pull request. When I first did this, I thought I would just be more, so to speak, unilateral and just get this task done, add these license terms to the project. But this is also a good opportunity for Harry and me to practice the software development process, including reviewing each other's work. Peer review is pretty essential in many domains, including software development. So what I will do, create a branch. We will include the license assets file as well. Oops. Deselect. I'm going to give the file name or the description. And we'll just change, I'll just copy this pull request text as well. Very cool. Yes, we've got some basic licensing stuff in place. Once this gets merged, then we can start the work. And that way everything will be openly licensed from the ground up, basically. Licensing is a bit of a confusing issue, admittedly, but it's pretty crucial to ensure that these creations, this creative work, can be used by other people, built on and modified, shared. Otherwise, the default copyright restrictions would apply. Even if we just dumped our work to GitHub without applying any licenses to it, it wouldn't fundamentally allow people to share or create the work, because copyright is basically provides a monopoly on how things can be, who can change it and for what purposes. So these licenses remove some of the restrictions that copyright would impose. And they remove those restrictions for everybody in perpetuity, so forever. As opposed to each person having to come and ask, oh, can I use that game asset for my game? Or can I build on this storyline? Or can I contribute to your work? This one, these licenses grant it for everybody, grant these freedoms for everybody. All right. So it would be nice if we could use this developer certificate of origin. That's interesting. Do we have to deploy our own probot, or is there a way? We do like the all contributors bot, and I'm pretty sure I've enabled that. Very interesting. All right, one moment. All right, yeah, this is kind of fun. Release drafter, add to GitHub, companionship care. I wonder if I can have sections like changed and improved. Yeah. This is cool. Features and enhancement. Nice. Huh. Very cool. I'll have to come back to these a little bit later, but these are nice ways of automating project management tasks. Thank you, Probot. We'll do a separate stream on that. Let's go ahead and wind down a little bit and do a quick recap. I was going to do developer certificate of origin, but let's just start here. Hello and welcome to a recap of today's open source live code hangout. Today, I've been working on a relatively new project. It's actually brand new, called Open Learning Quest. My friend Harry and I have been chatting. Well, we both live in the same town and have kids around the same age and hang out quite often. And we're both interested in educational games, you could say, educational gaming, as well as personal learning, self-motivated learning, a lot of different topics. And we've started a project, an initiative called Open Learning Quest, with the grand ambition of making an educational game. In the process of making the game, though, we're learning everything about game development, like not everything there's to know, but everything we're doing, we have to learn. We don't know any of this, so everything is new to us, which is pretty cool. And I guess that's how things are in general. You're always learning and, hopefully always growing a little bit. But in the process of making a bigger game, we might start by making some small games that demonstrate certain features or game mechanics and teach certain concepts. The whole idea of Open Learning Quest is it should be educational and engaging. But in order to make mini games, we might need to make some smaller experiments just with the basic primitive building blocks, like how a game mechanic would even work before we tie it into other contexts like rewards and levels or whatever that you would consider a mini game. So we have essentially 3 layers at which we'll work, starting with experiments, making mini games, and crafting a more full-fledged indie game. We don't have ambitions of being AAA game studio or anything, but we do want to make something that's engaging and entertaining in an indie game fashion. And we might start off with a 2D role-playing type game, hence the name Open Learning Quest. We're committed to working openly to produce an open source game as well as open educational resources. Harry and I have been meeting for a few weeks to discuss the whole idea and put the building blocks in place and come to an agreement about how we'd like to work and what our goals are. So today, after meeting with Harry this morning, I came home and I'm putting together our working environment. We're going to collaborate on GitHub, and we're going to work in a way that's open and accessible and welcoming to other contributors. And to support and to keep things open and accessible, we have agreed on using copyleft licensing So I've opened pull requests in 2 projects, the mini games and the game repository. And I'll probably open the same in the experiment. But both of these essentially add the same boilerplate text to our README. We agreed to use the Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike license and version 4.0 or later. The version 3.0 had some unfortunate holes in there that were have been fixed in the 4.0 version. And for the source code, we agreed also to use a copyleft license. And we had previously talked about the GNU General Public License and agreed to use that for our experiments repository. But given the nature of these games, there might be client and server component. I took the sort of initiative and added a GNU Afro General Public License to the minigames and game repository. And in order to not, which has protections for server-side software, it includes that as under the umbrella of distributing software if you serve it from a cloud-connected computer. And in order to not be so unilateral with this change, it's a bit of a change, and to get in the habit of developing software collaboratively, I opened these as pull requests and asked that Harry would review these changes. And we'll talk more. I'll talk more with Harry about what that looks like. But essentially, this is just the way we work with software development. You know, peer review is also common in the academic area, where Harry's background is in academics and mine is in software development. So that's it in a nutshell. We're starting this new project. We're going to use the Godot game engine, to the best of my knowledge, and we've talked about that. And in the meantime, we're both studying game development with Godot. We're going to orient our development towards 2D games that have an educational focus, but also will be hopefully engaging, so that the player is drawn into the game instead of being kind of pushed. They naturally want to pull themselves into the game environment. And we've sort of had some initial discussions about the art direction as well, but we're going to start taking these discussions to GitHub so that everybody can participate and see what we're thinking about and get involved and bring your own ideas. So if you'd like to get involved with this or similar projects, you can stop by github.com/openlearningquest if you're interested in game design, game development, or educational games, or just even playing the games as a playtester. We welcome your participation and feedback. You'll have to stop into one of the projects in order to participate in the discussion. If you've got an idea for a mini game, naturally you would stop here, go to the discussion, and share your idea. We might then take the ideas and group them together and say, hey, which one should we work on next, as a poll, or you can ask questions as well and show and tell your own work. So again, everybody is welcome, and we will be working to include and affirm all types of contributions, not just coding. You don't have to be a coder to participate in this project. All right, well, this has been a brief update to a new initiative we're kicking off, and another open source live code hangout. I hope you're doing all right, and I'll see you